Okay, hello and welcome from Canada in the winter at the kitchen table of the dear friend Leanne of my colleague Elizabeth Chambers here. My name is Olaf Kraus de Camargo. I'm a developmental pediatrician and one of the co-directors of CanChild, the Center for Childhood-Onset Disability Research at McMaster University. Together with my co-director Brianna DeRisi, we recently published an editorial entitled "Working Together Makes Us Better, Including Lived Experience in Research." And we were invited to talk a little bit about this and thought that it would be ideal to have someone with a lived experience sharing their lived experience with us, how it relates to research. So Elizabeth works with CanChild for some time already and has been involved in different research projects. She unfortunately was not involved in writing the editorial. After the fact, we thought we should have invited her before, but we cited her in one of the articles. So she is somehow in it. And she read it recently. And the first thing I thought of asking Elizabeth is, what are the highlights of this editorial that are meaningful for you as a parent and a person with lived experience?
There was so much in this editorial that I loved and spoke to me from the core. Even just looking at the title, you're looking at working together is making us better. It's the lived experience in research. It's finding a place for all of us. It's the idea that those with lived experience, whether they be those with disabilities, the families that are caring for them, that experience can be invaluable in the world of research. And I think that exactly like you said in the editorial, it's relatively new to bring that into all of the research. And it's something that everyone is working on developing and learning how to do appropriately and effectively. But if we want to make a difference in this world, if we want to make a difference that is practical and useful in our world and something that's actually going to make a huge difference, then you really do need to have those that are going to be directly impacted involved right from the beginning. And I think that it blew me away that it's recognizing the power of lived experience in that academic world of research, which is something that I'm really hoping is something that becomes more predominant in our world.
Oh, thank you for the kind words. But how did it start with you? I only know you, I think, the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And how did you get into research? Was not with my research, was not with Peter's research as well, I think. Where did it start?
There's a couple of different pathways it took. I wasn't new to the world of special needs when my youngest was born, because I had been involved in caring and raising my older son, who was originally my foster brother. And I had always been experiencing it kind of on the sidelines in a way. Even as a parent, it was, okay, you're looking to see these people making decisions, and you're looking for guidance, and you're looking, especially when you end up in a world like the NICU, which is an incredible place, but you lose that kind of, not authoritativeness or ownership, but that connectivity to being a parent and the one that is making those decisions for your child. And even when you come home with a child that has medical concerns and developmental concerns, you still lose that kind of ability to make those decisions for your child in your own home. So that can kind of leave a person really unsteady and not sure where they're going. And I discovered the world of Envisage, this program that I'm completely in love with and have my hands in every single pot of it as I can at CanChild, because it's about empowering and connecting parents and giving them, and families, and helping them discover their voice. And so I suddenly realized that, and I can have a say in what's going on, and that what's happening with my son, even though he's one of the most complex of the complex, can still make an impact and a difference for those that are around him and those that come after him, especially as I start to connect with other families. So I actually was working with one of our complex doctors, Dr. Audrey Lim, who is an incredible partner in this whole field of everything, both the medical side of care for my child, but also the research side. And she really encouraged me and said, you know what, there's this project coming out. My first project was DigiComp Kids, and it was looking at doing virtual conferences, beginning of COVID. So we were before that. But then it was suddenly like, wait a minute, it's not about me having this scientific background and this huge education or these doctorates or, letters behind my name. It's, I have value because I've gone through this with my son, and I've seen the world that he lives in, and because he is nonverbal, I'm his voice. And so that's how I got into this world of research.
And there's another podcast that you can also watch where you'll see Elizabeth called about, it's entitled, You Have Textbooks, We Have Storybooks. It was an editorial that Peter Rosenbaum wrote. And that reflects a lot the part of the clinical care and what you bring to the table are the stories, are the experiences that we often don't learn, and they're not written in the textbooks. So if other researchers read this editorial or listen to this podcast and say, well, I would like to engage with parents, what advice would you have for them as researchers? And then maybe later, what advice would you have for parents?
Oh, yeah. In 30 seconds or less. Okay. So I think my very first thing is to be open and honest. So it's one of the things I was really trying to get across with the storybooks and textbooks is that we need both sides. So we need that individualized story as well as that information. So I think that by developing that relationship and developing that open communication, that's the first step to getting families involved in research. It's about finding their interests, finding their backgrounds, and it doesn't mean, going right from being a parent or a person with lived experience to an actual involved in a research team. It could be going and getting involved in focus groups. It could be getting a chance to share your story at a presentation about, your experience that you've gone through in a certain area, so that information can get out there. There's so many different areas and ways that families can get involved in research. And I think that's part of it for families, is I think that sometimes we're afraid that we're, working with these very academic professionals that, sometimes it's an own language. Medical language is a very different speak sometimes. I know that after the first year, I was talking to an old friend of mine after my first year, my son was born, and they're saying, can you just speak normal? Can you just use like regular words now? And I hadn't even realized that I'd started picking up these different terminologies and usage. But I think that the joy of persons with lived experience is it doesn't matter your education, your literacy, it doesn't matter your background, any of that, because what you're bringing is what you've experienced. And there's no comparison. We had somebody that was saying, well, you spent this many times at the NICU. Your experience must be so different from that person that was there for a week. Even being in a medical environment for a day, a week, that's an experience. There's value in that just as much as people that have been in it for years. And any point in the journey, there's a value in the beginning when you're still learning, because that's all fresh in your brain. And then there's value as you go along in it. And that connectivity and the communication, I think, is the big thing, being open and honest.
And where could researchers find parents? How should they recruit or partner with them in a way that is also accessible and positive experience for the parents? What is needed to do there?
Well, one of the things you mentioned in your editorial, we have this amazing course, and that's one of the things I actually took at the same time I was doing my first research course, which is the Family Engagement and Research course. And so while I was, involved in this research project, I was learning about being involved in research. And I have to admit, it gave me that confidence to be knowing what was going on, talking about ethics, talking about protocols. But a simple way to get involved is being part of a research study. It's being part of a focus group. And I think that it's by sharing those opportunities, right? It's looking and saying, I'm open to this. And also just for clinicians and researchers to share the research they're doing.
One aspect of the family engagement research course is that you are together with research. It's like you're learning together and from each other. And I took the course as well, and I really enjoyed that experience. Yeah.
Right? Because it really shows you, it models for you how well you can work together. Yeah. That's one of the things I appreciate with CanChild the most. It's why you guys can never get rid of me, and I'm putting that on recording, because I love CanChild because I'm treated as an equal. I'm treated as important. And that modeling is what we need to show to everyone. So that's what the family engagement research course really does. By bringing clinicians and persons with lived experience together and having you working together, learning together, working on a project together, coming up with a product that you can, say, hey, look, we did this. Right away, you're actually role modeled there, an ideal way of working together. That doesn't mean you have to take something like a course to get involved. There are people that are, and we have researchers that are jumping full force into it, realizing the aspect. I think that's when you look at collaboration. So you look at finding those that have been involved with using families in their research and talking to them about how did that work? Where do you bring them in? Because I think a lot of people don't realize the value of bringing persons with lived experience in right from the very beginning. Yeah. Because that can truly shape where our research goes. Yeah. Right?
I gave a grand rounds this week via Zoom in Brazil, and the colleagues there were asking, you have that course and you have these parents that take the course and they get involved in research, but how well do you select, or how are you able to connect with people that are more distant culturally, financially, socioeconomically, that they feel comfortable in coming and joining your research? Do you have any ideas about that?
Community partnership.
Yeah.
It's one of the most amazing resources, I think, that people often forget because we get so siloed. I think we often forget that we have those areas that we can reach out to. We have those organizations that we can reach out to. And also our parents, right? That's one of the great things I see at CanChild is that we're not put there as just, a token parent. We're actually able to connect with our whole networks. Yeah. So we're able to talk to, because this is the world we live in. We're going to meet other families. We're going to meet families that aren't interested yet. And I always say it's not yet.
So you're kind of the broker between the research group and other parents, right? And build the bridge with them.
We're the broker as well as the role model. Yeah. Because they can see, I try to be very open about what I'm doing. Some people say, well, how do you do too much or so much? Yeah. And I say, but look at my life. It's not perfect. It's not like you've seen my house. It's not the cleanest house, but it's a house that's full of love, and it's a house that's full of reality. Yeah. And I think that's what I try to do is I show other families. It's not about having to have the perfect anything. This is about reality. Yeah. And I think that by role modeling and sharing that and brokering that, and I really try. That's why I love the storybook textbook. I know I bring it up too much, but because it's bringing those two worlds together. Yeah. And so I think that as a parent, I actually become the bridge there quite often because I'm bringing them together. We had the community practice that's being developed at McMaster for our patients and families engaged in research, and that's clinicians as well as persons with lived experience looking at some of the difficulties, the realities of involving persons with lived experience in research, because you need to talk about equity and diversity and inclusion and compensation, and all of that kind of needs to come into play. And I think it's because it's such a burgeoning world, it's something we really need to discuss and look at together. So it's one of the things that it drives me nuts when I see silos. Yeah. Because it's, why are we reinventing this so many times? Yeah. So that's one of the things I love most is when we actually connect with our community partners, connect with other research institutes, have the researchers connect with each other. Yeah. Share what you're doing, and then you know what? Then you can see that connection that can go. And then who knows, that one parent may know 3 other parents that haven't been willing to step forward, but they might try a focus group, get really interested in it, and all your doors are open. So
last question for looking into the future, what what should participatory research or family engagement in research or participation of people with lived experience in research, how could it look like in the future? I think we are going in the right direction. Where do you envision us to be? I don't know how many years, but if you look into the future, how should research in healthcare be done, and how should people with lived experience be involved?
I think is a perfect example. I think we should both answer this. So I think it's working together.
Yeah.
So for me, it's seeing people valuing experience, right? I think it's people, because I think sometimes it's even the persons with experience don't realize that they have value there. So in the future, people are going to know that.
Yeah.
People are going to see that. From the researcher side,
I would think, or my wish is that patients and family members lose that respect and somehow respect associated with fear of research. To being really comfortable with research, to asking us, what is the research about that? What is the evidence of what you are recommending? And also feeling comfortable in addressing us and sharing with us their ideas for research, because I think these are the most interesting and most valuable ones. And to really become part of the whole process of generating new knowledge, also questioning old stuff. So many things that I learned 30 years ago are not done anymore.
Right.
Maybe we could have stopped earlier in doing those things that we feel now are not appropriate anymore.
Yeah.
And I believe that if patients, families are closer with the researchers and clinician researchers, constantly challenging us, challenging the research, and bringing in new ideas and new questions, I think we could move the field ahead much faster.
Wouldn't it be amazing if you saw that as just a natural progression, right? Like it just became part of your daily practice, right? That, a family gets involved in having any sort of care for their child, or an individual starts getting care for themselves, and there is this aspect of research. Of course, it's just there.
Yeah.
And then seeing that it built right into it, so that the research and the development that we're doing, it really impacts our actual world, right? It's looking at this kind of concept. You have the line here, capturing the lived experience of people with impairments is fundamentally important to create a social, attitudinal, and physically inclusive environment. What if we built an environment, we had an environment that actually just naturally equipped everyone to be on the equal playing field and have the research being done that's going to make the most impact that it can? It'd be ideal.
Thank you so much for giving a bit of your precious time. And
thank you very much for bringing me into this. This is an incredible field. And this article is truly showing the value of what can be. And
it's short, but I hope it got the message across.
Definitely.
Thank you.